What is charge? Well, charge is a property of particles, and it's helpful to be able to measure attractive and repelling forces. And the equation looks a little bit like this. This is how to be able to measure it. Right? It's based on the charge, and this is Coulomb's law. That's what that K is there. It's Coulomb's constant. But that really doesn't tell the whole picture, right? What really is charge? Well, let's explain another property of particles. This one's mass. And this is Newton's second law that you're seeing there, which is F equals ma. But here's a question. Right? If charge is a separate property from mass, then how can force equations from particles all the way to large-sized objects be resolved? Because if you think of it, Newton's second law is made of objects which are essentially particles that collide, and those are electrical forces, but yet one is expressed with mass and the other is expressed with charge. So how do you reconcile these equations? And one of the issues is really units. And although we owe the pioneers of physics a lot of respect, such as Coulomb, you see here, a lot of the units in electromagnetism are named after physicists, such as these folks. And the list goes on and on. There's Newton, Tesla, Gauss, Weber. But the four here, we're just going to simplify. Here are the units, right? Amps, volts, henries, coulombs. And it's helpful, right, to say 120 volts, as opposed to if you were to derive it in full SI units, you'd say, all right, I have 120 kilograms per meters per squared over coulombs per second squared. Who's going to say that, right? So you say volts. It's easier. But the problem is that those who are studying the field really don't dig into the details and understand the physical properties of it. And if you really dig in deep, watch this. You can realize that it could be simplified even further. Watch the bottom right, that C that you see there. What if we replace it with M for meters? Right? It becomes simpler. And it's a derivation is actually easy, but if you need the details, go to that link there. It has the paper. But I'm not just talking about simpler as in removing just a few letters. I'm talking about simpler as in these units here are something that are known and understood in mechanics. See that change there? It's a velocity, it's a force, it's a mass, and distance. All right, so now we get out of the electrical world with a different set of units into something that can map towards mechanical systems, things that we see and describe with classical equations. Okay, but now there's another issue, right? The bottom two, that started with inductance, and now we're at a mass, and the one on the right started a charge, and now it's a distance. How can it be mass and a distance? Well, let's take an example of sound waves. All right, waves are measured as a distance. Think about wavelength between two waves, or you measure it based on the height of the wave. Let's start first with those red little dots. Right? In sound waves, it's moving air molecules. So that's a little red dot, and how do you measure an air molecule? Well, one way is its weight, or mass, it's kilograms. Now, what you see there as the distance between those thick lines is a wavelength. That's measured in as distance meters. That's not quite the distance that we want for charge. So another property of waves is amplitude. And these are longitudinal waves here. That's what a sound wave is. And if you notice there, the red dot towards the middle is moving further from what's called its equilibrium point, meaning it has a higher amplitude than the one that's furthest to the left. And that's another property. That's why sound has more intensity. It's louder as you're closer to the source. Right? It spreads out spherically and loses amplitude. And there's another property of waves I want to go over before we go back to charge, which is the different forms of longitudinal waves. And so standing wave, think about a guitar or even a piano would work as well. The strings are fixed at the end, and it causes a standing wave at a fundamental frequency. And you've got different strings that are set for those different frequencies. And just made this one-dimensional. It's really hard to envision spherical 3D waves. So let's have a little person here that's listening to the guitar, and the movement of air molecules eventually reaches that person, and that's what you hear as the sound waves coming from the guitar. And even though the guitar starts off at standing waves that are being created by the strings, of course it eventually transitions to traveling waves throughout the air and reaches the person. Now, it's really hard to visualize these things as air molecules moving back and forth, so here's the sine wave representation, just a little bit easier to understand. So you see the wave that is going up and down on the left. That's a standing wave. And the one to the right is a traveling wave. So that's the primary difference. All right, why even go through sound waves here? How does it relate to charge? So now let's go back to that first question. What is charge? And instead of the guitar, let's apply that concept of longitudinal sound waves to something that exists in the vacuum of space. So of course we're not talking about air molecules here. We're talking about something that can even exist deep within space, in a vacuum. And it has a property of kilograms, and it moves in waves. And maybe this is what it might look like. Mass would be standing waves. Charge would be traveling waves. And to really understand this, particle, like the electron, has a radius, and that's the transition point, much like how you saw with the guitar, where it eventually transitions to traveling waves. And at that first wavelength, now imagine the elementary charge, which we just talked about, charge in units of distance. Imagine it being the wave amplitude at that first wavelength beyond the electron's radius. All right, that's a bold statement. All right, how are we going to prove that? Well, start off with an energy equation. It's the energy of waves. Now, keep an eye on that equation. Let's first derive that to be mass. Now, Q in this case is going to be replaced by the elementary charge because we're talking about a single electron. Well, what is mass? Well, from Einstein's famous E equals mc squared, you just remove the c squared from there. Right? It's energy without consideration of wave speed. And when you do that, and you use the electron's radius, so we're just measuring within the electron's radius, and Q is a single elementary charge, when you plug in the numbers, you'll find that that is the mass of the electron. Right? So that U is the magnetic constant. So we now just have derived the mass of the electron from electrical properties. There's more, right? Charge. Well, what is charge? It's really a way to measure force between particles. And what is the force? It's the energy at distance. So force is energy at distance, and you're going to put another r in the denominator, which makes it r squared. Coulomb found that all the magnetic constant and c squared over 4 pi, you just represent it as one letter, the constant k. So you substitute that in, and what do you know? You have Coulomb's law coming from the same energy equation we just used for mass. In summary, so charge is wave amplitude, right? Waves are everywhere, and just quickly what we did here was we simplified the units, right? We didn't need a complicated unit system. Everything comes down to kilograms, meters, and seconds. And starting with one energy equation, we're able to consolidate electrical and mechanical equations, and with a very logical explanation, right? Mass is stored energy, it's standing waves. And electrical force is declining spherical waves, energy at distance, traveling waves. And that's it. Charge is wave amplitude.